Now, the great news is that you don't have to take my word for how to study, because people have been asking this question for many years, and that's given educational researchers an opportunity to study it. One study that I think is particularly interesting because it was done with anatomy and physiology students like you was conducted by the Karpicki Lab. He asked his students how they study, and many of them reported back that they used very similar study strategies to the ones that I think many of you are planning to use in this course. His students made flashcards, they read the textbook, they re-listened to lectures, they made study guides. So he took some of his students and he put them into a group and he asked them to study, study again, and study a fourth time. And then he took some of his students and made a second group. And those students studied 3 times. Study, study again, and then they took a test. Finally, he made a third group, and he only allowed them to study 1 time before being tested, tested again, and then tested a third time. And at that point, he asked each of those groups of students how prepared they felt for the upcoming exam. Not surprisingly, the students that studied the most felt the most confident about the exam. And the students in that third group that had only studied a single time and had 3 tests were feeling really, really nervous about it. But what's really interesting is that the actual students' performance on the exam was completely reversed. Even though the students that had studied a ton felt really confident, they actually did poorly on the exam. And the students that had been tested a whole bunch of times did really well. So his work tells us that in order to be successful, we can't just focus on putting information into our brains, because that's not what happens during a test. On a test, you have to take information that's in your brain, access it, and then you have to bring it back out again. And in order to do that, you have to give yourself some practice developing that skill. So in the world of educational psychology, this is known as retrieval practice, or simply as the testing effect. And it's something that you should try to develop as you go through the course. Test yourself as often as you possibly can. And of course, I'm here to help you, because there are 3 different types of content in this course. You might even find yourself studying differently for each of them. So when it comes to learning facts, which is usually a starting point, it's the bread and butter of our course, we know that time is a major factor. You have to give yourself time with the information, or there just isn't any hope that you're actually going to be able to learn it. Unless you have a photographic memory, in which case that's really cool and we're all really jealous, but that's not most people. We also know that time is a factor. You might need to hear something 3, 5, 10, or 20 times before it actually sticks. Now, the chances are, at this point in your academic career, you've already developed some pretty good strategies for learning facts. You use things like flashcards or Quizlet, you make study guides, or you write things over and over again, whatever it is. It's usually those concepts and the problem solving that creates a little bit more problems and that people need a little bit more practice with. Now, since the goal for both of those 2 types of learning is to think about the bigger picture, one of the best things that you could actually do is discuss the material. You could bring your questions to me during class, you could come to office hours, or you could join a study group with some of your classmates. If you want to think about relationships between things, well, you can start with your facts. You have all of these facts on your flashcards, so one thing you could do is pick a few of them at random and then ask yourself what the relationship is between them. How are they the same? How are they different? To try to frame your thinking about a lot of the stuff that we talk about, on Husky CT, I also post learning objectives with each slide set. And you can use those as the basis for your study guide to make sure that you're not missing any big chunks of information within each of the units. My other big recommendation is to draw pictures. You don't have to be an artist. You'll quickly see that I'm not. But pictures do help you to process information in a different way. And oftentimes a single picture can tie together many different facts and concepts and save you a little bit of time while you're studying.